Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Today we are finally going to be getting a review of the Century Arms Tantal Sporter. Now this particular gun does hold a special place in my heart as I kick the camera stand, but this has also been some heartache as well. So what we have here, like I said, is the Century Arms Tantal Sporter. It's what they built using surplus Polish WZ-88 parts, better known as a Polish Tantal. Now, just real quick, briefly on the history here. Forgotten Weapons, as well as Michiko, has some good videos on the history. They're going to be able to get a lot more in-depth, a lot more details for you on this particular gun. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. Mostly what I want to be talking about is specifically these Century Arms built versions. So, real quick rundown of the history. Like I said, this is the WZ-88, also known as the Tantal. I believe Tantal was like the kind of quote-unquote code name they used for this while they were designing it. So Tantal isn't the official name, but that's what everyone calls it. And unlike the AK-74U Krinkov, the Tantal actually does have a connection to the gun, whereas Krinkov is just some weird American thing that we made up and no one knows where the hell that came from. Anyways, and also the years here, my quick research, the years kind of vary, so take these years as approximates. I'm not sure which years are exactly 100% correct, but I found that the design for this started in either 81 or 84, depending on what source you're going through, and the design ended in 88 in Radom, Poland. Production began in 89 and continued until 92. And it actually went into service in 91, once again under that WZ-88 name. There were approximately 25,000 units made, so this definitely falls into the category of, not super common, not necessarily really rare, but 25,000 overall units made. Then you think about, how many of those got demilled and imported into the U.S. as parts kits. Obviously, it's going to be a lot less than 25,000. So that kind of does give these Tantals a little bit of demand on the U.S. market. These are chambered in the 5.45 by 39. A lot of people will refer to these as an AK-74, but once again, technically, it's really not an AK-74. It's kind of its own thing. We'll obviously be going over some of those here shortly. All of them were produced with this folding East German copy stock here. Now, you are able to put in your standard wood or polymer AKM stock on these if you want to. You're not stuck with the side folder. So that's kind of neat how you can just remove it from the receiver. It's not built into the trunnion or anything like that. So you'll see a lot of these in the US with actually fixed stocks or different stocks put on them. These aren't the most comfortable. I don't find them uncomfortable. I find them more kind of just awkward to use. Takes a little bit of getting used to. And then the original barrels, which remember that part, because that's going to be part of some of the heartache. Luckily, I think I got lucky. We'll get into that in a second. But the original barrels were cold hammer forged, chrome lined, and had a 4 right-hand groove. Some of the part kits that made it into the US did come with barrels, so you can find some of the original barrels for these. I'm sure they demanded premium on price. It looks like most of these parts kits did not come with barrels. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at building one of these or something. Now, after Poland used them, I was looking around trying to see who they sold it to, and it's funny because if you go to Wikipedia, it lists like the top 3 users, and the US is one of them, simply because of how many part kits we got. But it looks like Poland did actually sell about 10,000 units to Iraq in or around 2006 and 2005. So looks like they did get their hands on some of these. And then also, and I couldn't really find any other information, not sure where they purchased them through, if it was like arms smuggling into the border, but it looks like these were used in the Kosovo war as well there. So wabam, there's my connection to my ongoing Yugoslavian collection there. Yeah, bit of a stretch, but I always managed to find a connection there somehow. So basically, these did not last very long. Poland, once they broke free from the Soviet Union, they very quickly wanted to ditch the 5.45 caliber and switch to 5.56. Like I said, go check out Forgotten Weapons and Michiko. They got some great videos on that. I think that's pretty much all I'm going to jump in on the history there. And of course, here's my Polish helmet. I do have a video on that. And I go into the graffiti that I found in here as well. So, that guy out of the way. What you get when you purchase a Century Arms Tantal Sporter, you'll probably get an owner's manual, either a big one like this or the exact same thing but smaller. When I got this, it came with both. I purchased this used, but he had 2 different size owner manuals in there. Flipping through this owner's manual, it's all the basic stuff. A lot of it is specific to the Tantal as well as, for the pictures and diagrams, because there's a lot of different little features on this gun compared to your standard AK-74 or AKM. You will get a metal mag as well as a polymer mag. I do believe these are both originally Polish mags. The only marking this has is the caliber there, and then in number 2, I'm going to guess that's just probably like a mold number. But I don't see like a Circle 11 or a Radom or anything like that on here. I have had some people tell me, I posted some pictures of this when I very first got it a while back. I had like 3 people tell me that this is actually a Romanian mag. And it is a tight fit, holy cow. So I don't know if any of you out there can tell me. I'm not a mag expert. I'm kind of under the impression that this is indeed a Polish mag, and I've seen some other videos on these Tantal Sporters, and it sounds like a lot of people got one metal Polish mag and one polymer mag, so I'm going to assume that this is indeed Polish. Now, one mag I have did not come with the gun. I purchased this from AIM Surplus. You got to get the dark Bulgarian plum mag. This does fit in here. It's a very tight fit, but I really like that plum and how it almost matches the upper handguard. So just had to show that off real quick. So when you purchase this, though, these are the 2 mags you're going to get. We'll throw that guy in there. And also, you're going to get a little bipod that clamps onto the gas block there. So, Century Arms, surprise, surprise. I'm not even going to say kind of muck these up. It's pretty much undebatable. They majorly muck these up. Oh, and another thing, it will not come with the Bakelite grip. It will come with a new US-made black polymer grip. I purchased that separately. This was pretty cheap. And luckily it matches the lower handguard pretty well. And these handguards you'll see kind of in different flaky, Bakelite colors. So first things first, the most obvious difference to those that know Tantals that Century kind of messed up is the finish. And I'm not sure how well that's coming across on camera. Turn up the lights there a little bit. But originally these Tantals would have a black finish. What Century did is kind of more of a gray phosphate type finish, so that's kind of annoying. Not a big deal. The receiver is a little bit darker than the rest of the gun though, but yeah, not the right finish at all. The other thing which I've seen on a lot of the Century built Tantal Sporters, but I feel like I've seen some where they're not like this. These rear rivets, it looks like they're not mushroomed out correctly. I have had several people tell me that actually these were kind of like a screw-in type rivet, and that's just how they look. But once again, I don't know if I'll get a good angle here. I kind of feel like whatever they are, if they're installed correctly or not, the receiver looks like it might be ever so slightly deformed right there. So that's another kind of annoying thing. But the biggest issue they had with these was the barrel. And guys, I'm not making this up. If you're not familiar with this story, you're going to be like, oh, this is just got to be urban myth. No, it's real. I hope someone lost their job over this. When Century first started building these, they did not use 545 barrels. Instead, they were using 556 barrels. That really happened. So needless to say, the bullet wasn't really grabbing the rifling very well. And these had major keyholing issues. If you don't know what keyholing is, basically, you know, your target that you're shooting at, what you should leave there are perfect little circles or maybe ragged circles. Keyholing is when it leaves a side profile of the bullet. Because basically the bullet's just tumbling. So since these had a slightly larger barrel than they should have, obviously it created a major keyhole problem for these. Now, I'm not sure exactly how many of these got out with the incorrect barrel. Century did eventually realize this, corrected the problem, and obviously too, I'm pretty sure I've seen some videos of people talking about how they sent their gun in, and then they weren't sure if they got a whole new gun back or if they simply replaced the barrel on the one that they had purchased. But for a while there, Century was fixing those. So if you end up with one of these and it's keyholing and it has that 556 barrel, I have no clue if Century is going to fix it for free for you. So that is a major issue with these guns. So keep that in mind. And of course, the backstory on this, try not to ramble on too long, but it's story time, so I probably will. Oh, sorry, guys. Years ago, many years ago, went out with a good buddy of mine. Him and his brother were fairly into guns. At the time, I was not into guns. I was not the brown coat nerd you know today. And as a kid, I grew up on a farm, so, you know, I knew gun safety. I was taught to shoot at a young age. I just personally wasn't into hunting, not because I didn't want to hurt little animals. I love steak. I just have a real light stomach, and watching my father clean a few deer did it in for me for any kind of urge of hunting, because it's like if I got food, I've got to do that to it now. So yeah, I was a bit of a city slicker, but that's the honest truth right there. So anyway, so I was familiar with guns, but ever since I was, God, I don't know, probably 12 and kind of moved away from the farm, I hadn't shot a gun. So I went out with my buddy. His brother had a Mosin Nagant 9130, which I thought was really cool because I've always been a World War II history buff. And then my buddy had this specific Polish Tantal. Now, when he had it, like I said, it had the original black polymer grip on it. He wanted it tacticaled out, and so he had this Midwest Industries quad rail on it. I do not know if they make one specifically for the AK or the Polish Tantal. He swore up and down that he did research and this was the proper one, but it was all like extremely loose on there. I've actually busted some of these screws getting it off there because he put like Loctite on it and torqued the living hell out of it trying to get it tight. But this was not even tight on there. It looked kind of cool, but it was very loose. And then he had gotten rid of the side folding buttstock and actually had this Tapco stock, which is now on my Lynx 12 gauge shotgun, which was actually supposed to go out and shoot today, but plans got canceled, so I'll be going out and shooting this soon. So we finally will have a first impression shooting on the Lynx. And also for any of you that were following that upgrade series, finally got that freaking thread protector off there. Good Lord. I also finally shot this Century Arm C308. So we'll have first time shooting impression video on that as well. So this AK, I keep wanting to say AK-74, this Polish Tantal, or WZ-88 that I shot, looked very different from what it is. Now, I didn't know AKs at all. I just thought it was cool. I got a shot an AK that day. Shot this, absolutely loved it. I was astonished at the low recoil, especially after shooting that Mosin Nagant. And we were just shooting like at tree stumps and stuff. We weren't really target shooting. And I'm sure back then my accuracy, I mean, I was just kind of reintroduced to shooting sports all at once there. So that day definitely left an impression on me. One, had my buddy shoot a video of me shooting this, and I uploaded it to YouTube, and I titled it I Heart AK. And that was the very first video on BrowncoatNerd that was actually public. At one point, I know I set it back to private because as I got more into shooting and learning more, I watched that video and I was chicken winging like crazy. It was an old camera, so like the pixelation looks like I was on a witness protection program. So I just set it to private. Since then, I went back to look for it. It looks like I accidentally deleted it. But, so first video on BrowncoatNerd was actually me shooting this many years ago. This is the first AK I shot. It's what kind of reintroduced me to shooting sports. And the next weekend, I went out and actually bought a Mosin Nagant 9130 myself. And that's what started it all. And that Mosin Nagant is actually my first review on BrowncoatNerd. It's not very good like most of them. So a few years later, my buddy, I remember him talking about selling this, and I didn't have any, spending money at the time to spend on a gun. So he sold it to a family member. And then, this was like right around the beginning of the whole, 2019, 2020, the whole coof and all of the craziness. He had mentioned to me that he actually purchased it back from said family member. I guess he said he had to deal with a family member. If he ever wanted to buy it back, he could buy it back for the price he sold it to him. He bought it back. And he told me, looking at it, he's like, he doesn't even think that guy ever even shot it. And so wanted to know if I wanted to buy it. And I was definitely on board with that. This was right around a phase I was selling a few of my surplus guns off. So, I think I sold one or two of those to help get the funds right away so I could make sure I could secure this. And that's when I started doing a little more research on specifically the Century Arms Tantal Sporter. And that's when I stumbled across the barrel issue. And I got very nervous. But he was offering it to me for essentially what he paid for it years ago, which was a really freaking cheap price. Really cheaper than you can buy any AK for right now. And looking around, I've seen some parts kits for these. I'm not sure if those parts kits came with the original barrel or not, so you got to kind of adjust for that price there. And they were going for like $1,300 to $1,500. And so, like, even if this had the wrong barrel, I was kind of looking at it like getting a really cheap parts kit. Of course, I got to go through the hassle of dismantling everything. So I decided to go ahead and roll the dice on it. And I was looking around on Gunbroker too, and I did find a few of these Tantal Sporters. And they were, I found a few, I think I found two. One of them was listed at $1,300, the other one was listed at $1,500. Now keep in mind, those didn't have a single bid on them at the time that I came across them. I don't know if they ever ended up selling, at what price they ended up going for. It may have been a situation where no one bid on it at all. Also, this was at the height of everything gun related just being priced way, way high. So it's kind of hard to say really what the value is specifically on one of these Century Tantals. Now, a while back when I was trying to get funds for my Set Me LC, I did take this to my local gun shop to see, if I could put that on consignment with them. And he just did a little bit of research, and he, flat out told me he didn't even want to mess with selling this gun. Now, I did some research, and according to the serial numbers, this is the correct barrel. I found multiple sources and multiple people telling me, I don't know if you can even see that, but if the serial number has a Y, it does have the correct barrel on it. I've seen other people say that the finish, the barrel is more black than the rest of the gun. Now, I will say in person, this barrel looks black, and I know I've taken pictures where it in person, this barrel looks gray, but I've taken pictures where the barrel actually looks black. And on camera, it just simply looks like a slightly darker gray, I think. So I don't know if that barrel color is an accurate way to tell. And I did not take this out shooting for the longest time, mainly because all of my access to outdoor shooting was cut off. So I was stuck using an indoor range. And 545 by 39 is almost always steel core, steel case. And most of your indoor ranges, including the ones I go to, do not allow that. So I spent a ridiculous amount of money, and I was on a email notification list for quite a while for this stuff. I can't remember who I ended up buying it through, but I know I'd get notifications that this stuff was in stock. And typically before I had a chance to order any, it would be sold out already. And then one day I was like on a bathroom break at work, and I got the email notification. I'm like, I'm doing this now. And I got a couple boxes, and shoot, how many boxes was that? I think I had like a total of 80 rounds of this stuff. But it's brass cased. I know. That's heresy in an AK. But it's also a non-magnetic bullet. It's got one of the Hornady VMAX, a little, jacketed bullet with the plastic red tip. So I just wanted to hurry up and get some ammo. Take it out to shoot it to see if this actually was going to keyhole on me. Now the other thing is the shooting range I went to, I'm not even sure if I was able to get the distance that I needed to for the keyholing to start showing up. The maximum range is 75 feet. I do know you got to shoot it at some distance to really get that bullet to start tumbling. But at 75 feet, I had 0 keyholes. The groupings were all actually really tight. I was like really happy with the accuracy of this. So I no longer want to sell it, which is good. I ended up getting that set in the LC anyways. But for what I use it for fun, I'm more than happy with my purchase now, especially for the price I got it at. Eventually down the road, I could totally see myself sending this to someone and possibly getting it rebuilt, done in the correct finish, because that just drives me nuts. But just that's the big thing with these Tantal Sporters is figuring out if you have that correct barrel or not. If you're looking at buying one, it's like if it's from someone I definitely recommend you go out and shoot it at some range so you can see for yourself whether it's keyholing or not. Like I said, mine seems to be fine, but I'm not sure if I was, shooting at far enough away. So I don't know if that whole Y serial number thing is correct and accurate. So I don't want to make a video saying, yeah, if it has that, you're good to go. It would appear that I'm good to go, but even then, I'm still not 100% positive. So just keep that in mind there, guys. Put that on the side. So real quick, let's go over some of the kind of features of this gun. First off, we have what looks like a standard AK-74 muzzle brake, but it's actually quite a bit longer, and that is because it is designed to shoot rifled grenades. You got your little gas ring or retainer ring right there. The interesting thing about this is the barrel, it's not really set up where you just have the threads and then, the end of your muzzle. The barrel goes on for a little bit beyond the threads. I have not cleaned this since I shot it, which was like just 2 weekends ago. So you can see there how it kind of extends on. So if you're wanting to get one of these and not wanting to keep it original, keep that in mind. There are definitely muzzle brakes you can still use. Let's go the correct direction. Also, I think it was AK Operators Union. I saw a video where he talked about if you get the adapter for the 14x1 left-hand threads to the freaking larger threads, whatever that is, that takes up a little bit of room, and then you can put a muzzle brake on there and it kind of clears that extra length of the barrel, but also kind of gives it this look of almost having a shorter barrel because that front sight post is ever so slightly further back. Then you do have a unique gas block. It's the AK-74 style, but you got this little extra ring up here for that bipod. Now I'll see people attach that bipod all over on this barrel, but it goes right here with that ring. And the bipod does have a little cutout that makes room for your cleaning rod, which is kind of nifty. Then up front here you do have your bayonet lug. And then this one here, not only did it fire rifled grenades, but they also made a underbarrel grenade launcher that would utilize this look. And while we're on the bayonet, I do not have a Polish bayonet, but I do have a Bulgarian one. And essentially the Polish ones looked like this, minus the serrations at the top. For whatever reason, Poland did not add, the serrations on the top. And I know they came in this Bakelite. I'm not sure if they ever came in just the plain black polymer, but if you, this bayonet does fit on there. So if you don't have a Polish one, but you got a Bulgarian one or a Romanian one or whatever, it will work on the Tantal. So your little retainer here for your handguard, that's where it differs from your standard AK-74 AKM. Basically, you just pop that down, and then both your upper and lower handguard can be removed. As you can see, this is a specific upper handguard for the Tantal. I do believe the lower is too. You might be able to like modify an AKM handguard to fit on here. I'm not positive on that. And this is kind of a purpley polymer, where this is more of your kind of traditional Bakelite color handguard. And I will say, from going out and shooting, it was like I said 2 weekends ago, my nephew from Chicago was in town, so we went out and shot the 70L, shot this. He absolutely loved this thing, but holy cow, did this handguard get hot. So I'm probably not gonna lie, gonna put a little bit of foil on the inside of this where you can't see it, just to give us a little bit of extra heat protection. Also, the front sight post on this was painted white. The guy I purchased this from is a good friend of mine. Like I said, he swore up and down that he was purchasing it brand new. I kind of wonder if he actually purchased one that was used, because he says he did not paint this front sight post white. I don't know if that's something Century did, but there's also an issue with the buttstock I'll get into here in a second, that I think what he purchased may have been never fired, but I think it was technically used. So back here where we normally have our little gas tube release lever, we do not have that because this breaks down slightly different. So that's one kind of easy, notable way to spot out a Polish Tantal. Your rear sight post, he did have a little spot in here. These originally did have a little tritium insert, which I thought was kind of cool. And I thought about like different ways of trying to like utilize that. You can see there's a hole here. I don't know if that goes all the way through. I thought about like maybe trying to jab like a little piece of fiber optic in there, or trying to paint the inside with glow-in-the-dark paint, but ultimately I don't really think any of that's worth the hassle of it, so I probably won't. We do have a ribbed dust cover, and the takedown for your dust cover is a locking one. As you can see, it's in the up lock position right now, and you got to push that down first to take it apart. And that is due to the fact that this was intended to be using rifle fire grenades. A lot of the AKs that they intend to use it will have some kind of extra locking mechanism for the dust covers. The Yugos have that little cross lock that goes in there. Let's get the stock out of the way for a second. Then our safety lever here is a very slight design of the standard AK safety, so those are not interchangeable. Obviously this has S and F, where the original Tantals would not. They would have whatever the Cyrillic abbreviation for it would be, I would assume. And on this gun, it is actually just straight up a safety lever. This is not your fire selector, which is really what I think is the most unique thing about the Tantal. So right now it could either be in semi-auto, 3-round burst, or full auto. The fire select has nothing to do with this side, where it's just simply a safety selector. Whereas over here, we have our fire control. As far as I know, this was the only quote-unquote AK-74 that was produced that actually had 3-round burst. Now on this build, and I believe other builds as well, depends on, you know, who built it and how they decided to build it. Some of these Tantal builds I've seen without this lever over here whatsoever at all. Other ones I've seen it over here where it is stuck in one position. I've seen some where it just moves independently, but what Century did, they actually connected it to the safety lever. Which at first seems kind of cool, you know, okay, now this switch has some use, but if its safety is off, it's easy for me to switch it back into safe if I push the right way, with that lever. But if I want to take the safety off with that lever, it just requires like too much torque. You're not going to get it with that little lever. So really, you can only put the safety on with this little lever. And if I were to rebuild this, I'd probably just set this switch up where it just moves independently and doesn't do anything. So want to point that out. And like I said, originally this would have the black polymer US made grip. This is a Polish made grip. Like I said, it is pretty cheap, and I feel like this condition's pretty good, so I'm happy with that. This is not the original side folding buttstock that came with this gun. The original one, obviously, you can see this is a little more of a black. The original one was that phosphate color, and it did not have the locking mechanism at all. It was super stiff. So once you pulled it back, I mean, it was pretty much locked back. And, you know, like I said, years ago when we went and shot it, that stock never folded on us. So after I purchased this, luckily he did keep the handguard and the original side folding buttstock with it, but I noticed it didn't have the little locking bit, and that just kind of bugged me. Like I said, it was very stiff. Once it was folded over, I mean, it took some force to pull that buttstock out. But it just bugged the living hell out of me, and I tried to find just the internals for that buttstock, and I couldn't find them anywhere. I was having a hard time even finding a replacement buttstock. I finally found one. Now, the difference is the original one that came with it came with like a little plate that would slide up on the back of the buttstock, and the grip nut would go through that. So it also kind of used the grip as another anchor point for that stock. This new one I purchased did not have that. So I don't know if it's a later produced Polish one or if it's actually East German. I have no clue. Now, the trunnion, the part that bolts into the trunnion itself is very secure. The brace does have just, the wire part does have just a little bit of up and down wiggle in it. But other than that, it's pretty secure. The downside now, though, is the original one that did not have the locking piece had the sling swivel, which was riveted right there. And this one did not come with that sling swivel. So yes, this is one of those things that bugged the crap out of me because I want to put a freaking sling on here. So eventually at some point I'm going to find a sling swivel and I'll find some kind of rivet or some way to freaking get that in there. I'm just frustrated with this at this point. But it works for now, and it locks. I'm much happier to have that locking piece. If I gotta sacrifice a sling, albeit. So, think I went over everything I really wanted to touch on here. With the prices of AK-74s, like all of a sudden it's like this kind of, you know, you're not cool unless you got a 74 in your collection, and they're a little pricey. And Palmetto State Armory just recently came out with some, but it seems like they're definitely having some growing pains with those. Just watched Michiko's video on it. So I was pretty happy to get this. Do I recommend buying one of these? Like I said, I got a stupid cheap price. I paid for this what he bought it for brand new. He probably would have got that in like, I don't know, 2008, 2010. Doug, when did you buy this? Comment below, Doug. So like I said, for that price, it was kind of like getting a parts kit, so it was worth gambling on the barrel. Like I said, I'm still not necessarily even 100% sure if this does have the right barrel, because I would prefer to shoot at a further distance before I at least tell you guys, you know, without a doubt it does have the correct barrel. But really, like, I don't care at this point, you know. We'll be able to shoot out in the country pretty soon, on a regular basis. But even then, you know, I'm not shooting this for self-defense. I'm shooting this for fun. It's part of my collection. So if I need to find something that really goes out there and shoots at distance, if you know, I'm out in the country and I want to see how, you know, really kind of stretch my abilities, this isn't going to be the first gun I'm going to go for. I'm not saying that this couldn't do it. I'm just saying I've got a lot better options in my collection So yeah, this isn't the guy I'd be going for. Also, a lot of people talk about this cheek weld, how it's awkward. I think I already mentioned this. I didn't find it uncomfortable. I just found it awkward. Took a little bit of getting used to, but I also used to have an AMD 65, which kind of has the similar issue. That side folding stock is much uglier in my opinion, but you still have zero cheek weld. And once again, with that one, I just found it took a little bit getting used to. And then I got very used and very comfortable with using it. I think this is the same deal. Yeah, inside of me, I kind of would like to put a thick stock on here to make it a little bit more comfortable, but this is a freaking Polish Tantal. There's not very many. I've got, a few other AKs in my collection. I'm just going to keep this original for now. Like I said, eventually I might send it out to someplace to rebuild it, but that is nowhere near the top of my list of things to do right now. I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. It's accurate to any range that I'm going to just be shooting it, goofing around, on the weekend or whatever. So I'm fine with it. I'm happy, but also I thought this was just really cool how this specific one was the first AK I ever fired. That weekend between shooting this and that Mosin Nagant, I really just, got back into shooting sports and started my whole collection that you guys are all aware of today. And also kind of the lineage of this being in the very first video ever, even though it's lost media now. But this was the very first video ever uploaded on BrowncoatNerd. So that video's gone. Had to replace it with something for this guy, right? All right, well, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a little bit of information out of it. If you did like this and you're still watching, please like and subscribe. Stay safe, stay shiny. Have a good one.